Sit tight. Want me to have him followed?
And hey, we're live again this week. It's the Sayonara Punk Podcast, and we are live. So bear with us if we have any technical difficulties. You get an echo?
Manny Moto.
I'm getting echo. Yeah, I hear it in the.
Well, hold on. I think I know what that is. What are we doing audio just from Discord?
Yeah, only from Discord.
Okay, I've got my video turned off, so I mean my audio. There we go. Is that better?
No, I'm still getting echo. Check. That's just me, I guess. I get echo.
Sorry, everybody, for technical difficulties. But now you get to see how a podcast is made.
I have full echo, Russ.
I don't know what to do about it.
Is it only echo on your end, Curtis?
It
Is
might
that-
just be me.
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
Check. Okay, I think I fixed it.
Cool.
Huzzah! Anyways, as I was about to say, going live is. Oh no, it's back.
It's tricky.
Josh says no, Nick. It's just you.
Just me? Damn, I wonder what that is.
Just roll with it, Curtis. Just roll with it.
Okay. Well,
Even Tucker's telling you to roll with it.
Maybe you rejoin Discord.
let me try one thing. Oh, you know what I think it is? It's because this Streamlabs is open, I think. Oh, check.
Manny Moto.
I figured it out because I am a genius.
Because we're good.
As I was about to say, going live is easier, not as easy as it looks. So, welcome to the Sayonara Punk Podcast. And this week, our guest is a friend and colleague of mine, Michael Maker.
Hey, guys. Hello.
And we're going to be talking, we're a little bit older dudes, some old heads here. So, we're going to go on a little bit of Gen X free ride down memory lane here. So, it should be a lot of fun for the old heads. And any young guys listening, make sure you take notes because we're going to drop a bunch of game on you and tell you about all the dopest stuff that you have never even heard of and don't know about.
And on a side note, we are Gen X. We are not boomers.
Yeah, we're not boomers.
Get it right. Seriously.
Not boomers.
Get it right. Get it right.
Yeah. So That said, I'd like to start off by asking you, very first, what's the very first piece of media you remember in your whole life? Like, what's the earliest memory you have of a TV show or a movie or a game or anything?
Well, for movie, it's seriously easy. I was literally 4.5 years old. My mother she was 20 when she had me, so she was, a young girl, so she wanted to go see movies, so she'd take her child with her. And it was Star Wars in the theater. And I can't tell you anything about that experience except three scenes: the trash compactor scene, Luke staring over the sand on Tatooine, and the trench scene. That's it. I couldn't remember, but that's the first movie ever, and it obviously had a huge impression on me.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars for a lot of us was mind blowing at the time. Like, that was one for me when I was a little kid, where that's all I was playing when I was going outside. I was Han Solo 100% of the time,
Oh yeah.
running around the playground or the jungle gym or whatever.
The thing is, no one I knew wanted to be Luke. That's the crazy thing. Everybody wanted
Yeah,
to be
why
Han.
is that, you think?
I don't know. The only time I wanted to be Luke is when my parents, summer, you're 5, 6 years old, they drop you off at YMCA and they have the pool, and you would mimic the scene where he's fighting Vader in Cloud City on the diving board and be like, no, and then drop into the pool like
Yeah,
you were doing something dramatic, like no, like yeah, that's it. That's the only time you ever try to be Luke. It was always Han.
well, it's funny that even a 6-year-old knows that Han is cooler than Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke is the hero, but even as a small child, you don't care about being the hero. You want to be cool, not heroic.
It's cool, but I also think it's like a sub, like you kind of get it in your head at an early age, like people are flawed, and
Right.
you pull for people to do the right thing. And Han was a quote unquote scoundrel, but you pulled for him to do the right thing. Luke was like the pious person, like you got to do this, yeah. And Han was kind of like the average guy, like you have a choice to make, like what's it going to be? And I think that's why people like Han more. Honest,
Well,
that's just my personal opinion.
and is it maybe because Han surprised you more, right? Like
Oh,
you didn't. He was the rogue, so you didn't know what he was going to do next. He was shooting aliens underneath the table, kissing his sister. You didn't know what to expect from Han. Where Luke was a little more like you knew he was going to bitch and moan and overcome the odds at some point. He was a little more boring.
yeah, my favorite movie of all time, hands down, and I'll fight anybody over it, is Empire Strikes Back. And one of my favorite scenes, and I even love the soundtrack to it. To me, it's a great standalone movie. It's a drama. It doesn't leave with a cliffhanger, but there's just a great story there. My favorite scenes is Han going through the asteroid field. And it's just, the odds of surviving the asteroid field 2,361. Never tell me the odds. It's like, shut him,
Right.
like, just his awesomeness. Like, no, like, he's gonna do this. Like that's Han was just cool, man. Like in the line, obviously my girlfriend hates it. Where Leia's like, "I love you," and he goes back, "I know." She goes, "I hate that line." I'm like, "No, it's a great line." She's like, "No, it's not."
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, yeah.
Bro,
No, that's an amazing line.
Your mic
Yeah.
sounds
is a little bit off? Oh no. Well, hopefully the audio is clean on this mic a little bit.
I can hear fine, so you're good.
Okay, so yeah, we're just getting mission control sound saying that I'm cutting out a little bit. But so what was then the first movie that you just religiously watched over and over and over and over, like as a small kid?
It's gonna sound weird, but again, my mom was young. Took me. I saw Conan the Barbarian in the theater, and I shouldn't, obviously I was 9 and we had HBO, and I remember going back to whatever, if I was 9, that's 4th grade, going back to the playground and pretending to push over those concrete wooden, or not wooden, but those concrete tubes that they put on playgrounds. And just every time I go on HBO, I would just watch it religiously. I love Conan. And
Yeah,
then
that's the second Conan we've had so far. Uh,
The Arnold Conan is just, to me, like, it's an opera. Like, if you look at it anything other than an opera, you're looking at it the wrong way. It's just a classic opera story. There's minimal dialogue, but it's it's a tragedy. And you want, and like, the older I get, the even more I appreciate it. If you look, like, with soundtrack, acting, cinematography, it's a great fucking movie.
do you know the opening dialogue by heart?
Uh,
The,
yeah,
the,
but
the
you
Dio?
put me. It's hold on. Before the oceans drank Atlantis, before the rising sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. An age. You put me on the spot and you
No,
screw it
that's
up.
good enough. That's good enough. Good job. I was gonna say, that was what I was talking about last time. Is I wish I knew I could recite that opening, because that, to me, that was always so epic and cool as a kid.
Well, the sad
Like,
thing is,
just the fighting fits.
any of my friends I grew up with, they're going to give me crap about this. I don't know what you're. I'm going to try to hold my profanity down. Like, I swear a lot, but I'm going to try to hold that. You're going to give me crap about this because we used to play in high school and college. Well, when we were appropriate age to drink, not condoning underage drinking. But we used to play a drinking game like, uh, quote that line, or even with comic books, like, there was a thing called the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, 80 and 84 edition, which had bios of every character. So it'd be like, what's Peter Parker's height, weight, and eye color and brown color, and that'd be a drink. So all my friends that just heard me not complete that line are going to give me crap about that.
Yeah. So you said your mom was really young. How young was your mom
She was
when she
20
had
when
you?
she had me.
Okay, so you had the cool parents then,
Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's
to a point.
yeah, to a point. I mean, she was young, and he was. My dad was 6 years older than her, but he worked. He worked night hours, so you know, it was the average. I guess mid to late 70s, mid 80s childhood upbringing. That kind of middle class upbringing. You there? Is everything all right?
Shit.
Do 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 do. No, I cannot hear you now. Do do do. To everybody listening out there, this is the technical difficulties of a live podcast. I wish I could juggle. I'd entertain you. Hello? Sibilis.
Test.
Yeah, I can hear you. There you go.
Yeah, does it sound a little better? Okay. Well, let's just keep going and until it fails again. Jeez. Uh, so were you basically more or less, unsupervised like most of the rest of us Gen Xers growing up?
Yeah.
Latchkey kid per se?
Oh yeah, be home by dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Summertime, we had actually 3 whole months for the summer, from Labor Day to Memorial Day, or Memorial Day to Labor Day. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
basically, yeah, we were just released into the wild
yeah.
as soon as your friends hit you up in the morning.
Where
or
did you
something
grow
at
up?
the
Where,
house.
where did you grow up?
So when I was younger, I was in Colorado.
Okay,
Uh,
were fireworks legal in Colorado?
yeah, we had legal fireworks.
Okay, so that's the thing I try to tell the people is, growing up, and I'm talking anywhere between the age of 11 and 12 to maybe before you could drive, well, you could drive 15, maybe 16. But 4th of July and New Year's Day, you go to the fireworks stands and you'd buy Roman candles, bottle rockets, and all the neighborhood kids would get together because you're shooting off fireworks anyway, and you'd have a bottle rocket war. Like, straight up, you'd make guns that could light bottle rockets, Roman candles, you just charge people with Roman candles. And I kind of feel bad that kids don't get to experience that anymore because,
One of my friends got the Roman candle right up the shirt,
yeah.
and it was just flying around in his shirt, and he was running around screaming and glowing.
Because the thing is, with a bottle rocket, that 1 in a million chance something bad would happen. It never happened around me, but you'd read about it in the paper, like, oh, it blew up in somebody's eye.
Yeah, you got to be
90
doomed for that to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, but 99.9% of the time, if a bottle rocket or a Roman candle kind of went off on you, it burned your shirt. I don't know how many shirts and jeans my mom
Yeah.
would get mad because I come home because I have little burn holes in. It might sting a little, but yeah, it was fun. Like you'd go all out. It would be from like sundown till probably 10 o'clock at night. It was just shoe sides. We would make PVC piping and like wood things like actual guns, so you could put the bottle rocket in. It has like a little metal piece that you could light it, shove it in, and pull the thing up. And it was fun, man. It was a good time.
Throw them. We would just
Oh
either
no, yeah,
just let it go straight out of your hand,
yeah.
like underhand kind of wing it, like get it going on its way, and then let it just.
Yeah, the worst was if that one stray one hit your bag.
Oh yeah.
And it was spectacular for 5-10 minutes, but then you were like, all my fireworks are gone. Like,
Yeah.
oh, all my fireworks are gone. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess when you have kind of free reign of the world like that as a little kid, there is a lot of just pyro things that happen.
Well, the thing is,
You start, combining
there's that
things in a
weird-
bucket and
there's that,
seeing.
we- there's that weird fine line between, yeah, you want to protect people.
Oh, really?
Like, are you out again?
It's fucking goes crackly and you can barely hear what you're saying.
Are you good, Curtis?
Yeah, I guess my mic is recording it. Is it because the level is weird?
No, the levels are fine. It doesn't matter what I
Did you hear me okay, Mike, and it's not sounding crazy or anything?
No, it sounds good, man.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there's that weird fine line between child abuse and just letting kids be kids. It's like, what was it? There's a famous quote, I forgot who it was, but Senate hearing or in the 80s, they were talking about pornography. And someone said, I can't define pornography, but I know what it is when I see it. It's the same thing with like, hey, yeah, your kids, they come home, they take care of themselves, they're not doing anything crazy, they get scuffed up, they come home. If they get injured, yes, you address it, but it wasn't this obsessive, worry.
Helicopter parenting.
Yeah. So I think honestly, I think we were the last fun generation to grow up. To be honest.
Right. That was that Larry Flint's trial.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah, we did have a blast growing up at that time. Like that was, BMX bike gangs, pyrotechnics, sneaking out at night.
As long as you didn't come home with a broken bone, you were
Right.
good. You were good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell
You could
people,
come home with some road rash, that's for sure.
yeah, I tell people, me and my good friends I still talk to, we first got our licenses. There was 3 of us that had cars. One had a pickup, one had a CRX, and one had a little Honda. And we bought CBs, and they played this game called Cat and Mouse, where one car would hide, and you'd give them clues, and you have to find it. But the catch was, when you found it, you had to tag the driver. So it got to the point where we're driving down, a major, a main street road, 35, 40 miles an hour. I'm in the back of a pickup, wetting pieces of bread, throwing it at the windshield, and then hopping in the back of another pickup truck moving and tagging the driver going like, I got you. And at the time you look back and you're like, that was some stupid, idiotic stuff. But, at the time it was like, no, I got it. It was just, as long as you didn't come home with a broken bone, you were fine.
Yep. So that said, when did you first? Well, I was gonna maybe ask about some vandalism, but let's just skip that one.
No, let's skip that. We don't want to encourage any
Right.
bad
Right.
behavior.
We don't want to encourage
It's
vandals.
a different time, a different world. I'm glad I'm not growing up in this generation. It would be tough and horrible. Like it really
know.
would.
I mean, I
Super-
guess every older generation looks at the new one and goes, "Oh God, they're doomed." But
yeah, but this generation specifically, man, like growing up with social, like, oh my God, like if you had, like, I'd be in so much trouble if you had social media back in the 90s. Like, oh, we probably wouldn't get hired. Honestly, it's like, it's, So I feel bad for this generation. I really do.
Yeah, they are very tempered, we'll say. There's a overarching control mechanism that makes sure that you don't get too high or too low. And if you get either one, we'll medicate you. But
They're
that's
good
just
kids. They're
yeah,
good
that
kids at heart. They're good
that's
kids.
they are good kids at heart, and that's a talk for another day. So when did you first? So what were you more into as a kid? Was it movies or comics?
It was comics easily because movies you had to, if they weren't on HBO or you didn't go to it,
Right.
or if you weren't fortunate on VHS, you wouldn't watch it. So yeah, the first comic I ever bought was at a comic book convention at Magnolia Mall, my hometown, Florence, South Carolina, and it was Star Wars #4 because it had the coolest picture. I was like the Death Star attacking and Luke running. But if I would knew what I knew now, it would have been Star Wars #1. But #4 just had the coolest thing. And then yeah, it's just basically comics. I just latched on to comics. Like there's something about them that are just, at least growing up. I don't know if every generation has that thing, but you just latch onto it because they're tales of, at least when I collected, it was, yeah, the stories were kind of loose. They weren't super detailed. Yeah, there were loopholes in them, but it's a classic story of right versus wrong, doing the right thing, regardless. That's why, like, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero because of that, because it's this Peter Parker kid. He's in college. He's working his, when I started reading, he's working his ass off. He's trying to take care of his aunt. He's got these powers that he's, fighting Green Goblin at night, but he's still trying to pay rent, trying to keep a girlfriend, like, because he does all these things and he gets no reward for it, but he does it because it's the right thing to do. And that's when, yeah, he's one that, like, I say Peter Parker is one of my favorite heroes, not Spider-Man, because Spider-Man or Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's like Clark Kent is Superman. There would be no Superman without Clark Kent, his upbringing, his morals, his values. Yeah.
Did you always feel like you had a strong sense of morality per se, like
I don't know.
innate in you, or,
I-
or what about that? Appealed
I-
to you? Do you feel like?
I can't honestly answer that, tell you honestly. I don't know.
Right.
You're a kid, you're just figuring things out, you just have the examples set before you,
Right.
and
But I mean, on the playground, you didn't have like a sense of injustice that you were going to go right or wrong. You saw it.
sometimes yes, sometimes no, but that was so long ago. I can't, definitively say like, oh yeah, in first grade
Yeah.
I did that.
Right.
You have
Right.
flashes, you have memories, but it's not like us. You can't just record it. But yeah, comics were always great. They were my friends and I that I'm talking about back in, especially around the '80s. I learned more from comics. Like I was a biology and physics major or minor in college. I was biology major, physics minor in college, um, and I love science. And not half, but a good chunk of the knowledge of science I learned was from comics. The first time I ever heard of the Mohs scale of hardness was a Fantastic Four issue. And there's probably people listening like, what's the Mohs scale of hardness? Like they would reference things like, and that's why it's comics. I can't speak it down. I don't want to, disparage anybody because I encourage people. If you like what you like, enjoy it. I just don't prefer today's comics as opposed to, and it could just be when you grow up and the time you read them. But when I grew them, it was storytelling. It wasn't storyboards for TV. Like,
Right.
yeah, what you could do in 1 to 2 issues of a Fantastic Four, 251, 250, 251, two of my favorite issues. Gladiator comes down. The Skrulls are pretending to be the X-Men. He's fighting them. Great. But that was 2 issues. Today's time, that would be like a 6 to 12 issue arc. And that's what I miss about comics is uh, I don't watch it that much anymore, but Doctor Who used to be like that. They're stories, they're individual stories, and there's an overarching timeline that connects them. But they're individual stories for individual morals, individual like conundrums, whatever you want to say. And then you'd have the big finale that tied everything together. And today, it didn't say today. It's probably started. I hate to say it. I'm going to blame Brian Michael Bendis for it when he did the Ultimate Avengers and all that stuff. Is perfect example. You'd have a spread page, and there's all this action, all these word bubbles, all this. And it wasn't blah, 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 punch, blah, 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 punch. It was a snapshot in time. It was like Ali standing over Frazier. It was like that heroic moment. And then the dialogue would explain everything that happened in that moment. And that's what I miss about comics is it had this great thing of you had the storytelling of a novel, but you had an unlimited budget when it came to visuals, and it was a beautiful medium. It was really pretty. And now, I mean, I get it, it's an industry, but now they're just storyboards for TV and television shows. So now it's panel of me talking to you, panel of you talking to me, panel of me talking to you. That's a page, flip the page instead of just one small panel with the dialogue going on. And I say there's something missing with that. Like it was great.
I
Sorry.
think you're describing a really good parallel to understand of what's happened to all media, where what you're saying is that like how dense the storytelling was at that time,
Yeah.
and it's character driven, and it's characters that you can invest in because you feel like they're actually teaching you, you're learning from them, and you're learning about the character, so you invest within that character. And
Yeah.
it's something that's character driven versus plot driven, and I feel like that's a big problem with a lot of the film today is it's not about the characters anymore, it's about the plot. It's about getting somewhere plot wise, like A going to B, and
Yeah.
what the characters say and do along the way doesn't as much matter as long as we get from A to B.
And also it's based around, like, in my personal opinion, better or worse. Again, I'm not trying to nobody take offense to this. It's it's basically based around these ideas like I want a shot of this. Wouldn't this look cool? How can we put this in a story other than let's plot out a great story and then figure out the pacing along the way. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I use this as a great example. Any comic book people will know what I'm saying. It wasn't a great movie, but it was a great annual. It was basically Guardians of the Galaxy annual #1. Big splash pages, independent story. It was fun. But as far as storytelling wise, it was rushed and it was kind of pigeonholed into the whole, you know, Thanos Infinity Gauntlet thing. Same thing with the Captain Marvel movie. That was a movie almost made me cry. God, that movie it's hurt me on a personal level, man. It really did.
And what do you think is the main? What did you love about that comic versus what wasn't there in the movie?
Well, Captain Marvel. So I grew up in the '90s is when the whole Infinity Gauntlet series came out, and I collected that. And I remember going to the comic store. Someone even told me, "It's like, dude, you got to get this. Thanos is coming back." And I'm like, I don't know who Thanos is." And they're like, "No, no, you got to get this." And then later on, when you get a job, back in like 2005, when I used to go to Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica, and they had great back issues. I was like, you know what? I love the story of Thanos getting the Infinity Gauntlet. I want to kind of get some issues, to kind of plot it out. Like, how did we get here? And Captain Marvel, you see, I have a statue of him right here. He's one of my favorite characters because he's basically the John Carter, came down, blah, blah, blah. But I knew he stopped Thanos, so I got those issues. And I was like, wait, what's this Adam Warlock thing? So I got that. And just it kind of expanded. And the thing that just was disappointing about the movies and the comic is like I actually the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind where he's building the
Mashed
mountain
potatoes.
and he's like, this means something. I don't know what. Back in 2003 when I did this thing, that's where this cosmic collection, these boxes, those 5 boxes started. Start with a short box. As I wrote down, like I was like, I want to know what I was saying, wrote down the storyline of from the inception to to the Infinity Gauntlet, and they made movies, and I didn't have anything to do with it, so it kind of broke my heart. But the thing they missed is there's a story there, and they kind of followed it, but you don't need to fix what's not broken. Like they missed on so many spots. Like, don't get me wrong, that whatever that bulk of movies, 40 to 50% is amazing. 10% I could care less about, but the others, it's great. They miss the actual story. It's like they're trying to make stuff up to go along. Like perfect example is the X-Men movie. When that movie came out in the was it 90? 97?
Early 2000? The
Yeah.
first X-Men
When it came out, everybody was like, this is great. And I said, look, the only reason this movie's good is because it didn't suck. Every other superhero movie, except maybe Superman the movie, was it was garbage. And that's the same thing with the X-Men. You're watching the X-Men, and you're like, okay, these are fun movies, but it's the equivalent of going, hey, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin with his clockwork mech, and JFK are taking on the Nazis. It's like, yeah, show me that movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
But it's not hit, like it's not correct. It's not correct. So that's the only thing that gets me about the comics and the movies is it's there, and I love it because as a kid, if I saw this, I'd be like, holy crap, this is amazing. But they really are missing a story points. They're missing.
Well, and back to what I was saying before about things becoming plot driven, the reason for that is because it's an easier movie to make. To create a character driven movie means you have to have good actors, you have to have good writers, you have to have a good director who's going to do the storytelling and shots correctly. And those three things right there are very difficult to find and achieve. Whereas this plot driven stories, all the elements are much more swappable because the character just needs to go run, and that's his line.
I agree with you most of the point, but also one thing is we know that's just what the industry is. Like, I've had this conversation. It's like, look, they're here to make money. They're here to tell stories. It is what it is. They're here to make, enjoy, like the masses enjoy it. That's what they're here to do. But all I'm saying is you can still have these character driven movies. You can still have these fantastic movies. Just get people that know the history. It's there. Like you don't have to fix what's not broken. Again, with the X-Men, I hope Marvel, now that they have the rights to the X-Men, do it correctly, because there's 5 easy built-in. If you want to do a TV series, 5 easy TV series built in right there.
Did you watch the animated X-Men series from the 90s?
I did, and that was one of the closest I got. I'm like, hey guys, you guys kind of get this. Like you guys, I didn't watch it religiously, but when I was home and it was on, I watch it, and it's like, oh yeah, you guys get like, okay, this is the closest I've seen. Because I remember Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was fun, but it was, just non-canon, just kind of cheesy, hey, Stan Lee. Yeah, that's the only thing that it hurts me, because I could teach classes on this stuff, and it's just like,
well, and canon is important, right? Like as a fan, canon is important to you as a fan because you're investing your time and mind into the universe, and the timeline of events that happen within that universe are important to you as a consumer of whatever it is. And then if somebody comes in and just upsets that, it's offensive.
Well, it's not just upsetting. It's like, okay, so if you're going to write a movie about Romeo and Juliet, I have expected you to know the story, have read it, maybe taken an English literature class, understand the nuances of it. It's like you can do your version of it, but understand the core of it. Like, don't just say like, yeah, I read that, I get the story. So like example is like, I'm not one of those people that's like, well, issue 232, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's like,
I'm a book
you have,
guy.
yeah, you have different writers that come in, you have different artists that come in, you have some stories that people are like, this was dumb, but it's the overall art. Like, because I brought this up, you told me to bring this to grab something. Oh, where was it? I just had it. Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. Hold on.
So to
What?
that end too, there used to be like, for instance, Star Wars. If you were gonna, there's hundreds of novels that exist within the Star Wars canon universe,
Yeah.
and if you were going to be a writer within that universe, they actually vetted you really hard to make sure you understood the canon and to make sure that nothing you were writing in your novel was going to conflict with the already pre-existing timeline.
That's oh shit.
You're
That's my
still,
point. When
yeah,
did
yeah.
I get
You're,
muted?
nope, you're
Okay.
still good.
Um,
Yeah,
that
and
yeah, that's my point. But here's what I was gonna say. It's like if you want to go by issue, it's like well, if you want to do that, Aunt May was a Herald of Galactus.
mm,
Now, if you want to consider that canon, then no. It's like
right,
there's stories there, and writers are gonna do their own thing. They're gonna try like if I were a writer for Marvel and I was hired at say right out of college, I'd be so excited to write for something. I just throw my own idea out there with with reckless abandon. Perfect example of this is now it's canon. Wolverine.
mm,
So back in the mid two, oh no, Jim Lee actually did this in the I think it was the late '80s, early '90s. Is Jim Lee's a completely different rant. Uh, Wolverine, Magneto stripped all the adamantium out of Wolverine's body, and he was dying. And he popped his claws, and he had bone claws.
right,
And the thing is, me and my friends at the time were like, no, no,
right.
because in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe,
Yeah, get it.
this is the hardcover. Came out in 1980, 1984 update. It shows diagrams of Wolverine, and it says the excess adamantium was used to make claws because they didn't know what else to do with it.
Right,
And to me, that's where it goes back to my point is like know your history before you just start writing stuff because now it's canon. Now it's
right.
canon. It's canon.
Yeah, and on that note, and on what you were saying about the science part of things too, that as a child to me was some of the most interesting stuff when it
Yeah.
seemed rooted more in the real world, where you had this almost Encyclopedia Britannica about Wolverine or about
Yeah,
and
there is
going into heavy detail about how all the powers work and why things are the way they are. That's what's interesting and that's what's exciting.
well,
No,
something happened in the culture, and I noticed it because you get older. You're in the pop culture. You go to
right.
college. You get a job. Something might happen. You fall out of pop culture because you're working. I went back to grad school when I was 26, so I got back into pop culture. So I got back, like, learned all this stuff. And there's something happened in cultural shift between like the 90s and 2000s where I don't want to say imagination shrunk, but there felt this need for everything to be explained.
Right.
So if you look at that time period, like 2000s, 2010s, that's when you had like, this is so and so's origin. This is so and so. This is how this works. This is so and so's father you never knew about. It's like you don't need to know. Like Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, perfect example.
Mm.
Ruin that character completely. Completely ruined. The prequels did it, but then Book of Boba Fett was just like I'm gonna put a stake in it. But
Right.
the best thing about Boba Fett is you didn't know who was underneath the helmet. You know
Yeah.
anything about him. He was just this crazy badass bounty hunter. I didn't know anything. And that's what happened. Like Wolverine, when I grew up, he was the badass. So people watching now and even earlier, they love Gambit. And I get it because Gambit came around the 90s with Jim
I was a
Lee.
Gambit fan.
He was the Wolverine before there was, before Wolverine became a pretty boy, nice guy.
Mm.
Wolverine, when he first, the whole thing, Wolverine is 5'3", covered in hair, not a good looking dude,
Right.
a mean son of a bitch who weighs
And
500 pounds.
and he's a simp.
He likes to drink and smoke and fight, and he has a background in a samurai. Like he studied under the samurai.
Mm.
Which, yeah, yeah. Watch anybody X-Men 173, first X-Men comic I ever bought. Great, you'll get
Yeah,
it.
so what are the comics framed on the wall there behind you?
That's X-Men 173. It's the first X-Men comic I ever bought at Ray's convenience store in Florence, South Carolina.
Mm.
That one is Fantastic Four 251. That's the first Fantastic Four comic I bought because someone told me to buy it. That is where Galactus destroys the Skrull homeworld. Nova up there, who becomes his new herald, I don't want to go on a rant how she came, but she seeks out a world. She finds a Skrull homeworld. Galactus destroys the Skrull homeworld, which sets off a huge. I want to get into it. Like, yeah, I could go on a rant.
Right.
And then the one next to it is I can't read the number, but Amazing Spider-Man 264. It's Craven's Last Hunt. There's a 6-parter. So Craven the Hunter was one of my favorite villains of Spider-Man. I don't know why. That's one of my
hence the vest.
Yeah, that's where my homemade Craven vest from Halloween of 2016. But I just liked him, and I think these issues, when I read it, I was an age, it just struck me, is I don't want to give anything away, but it's not your typical comic. Like, it was ahead of its time. It was a drama, it was a tragedy, and it was kind of poetic. So yeah, it just had a huge influence on me. And
This is kind of the allure of comics too, is you get to experience so many different types of stories and storytelling.
Yeah,
As fast as you can consume them too.
look, it's not fast, but art. I will buy a comic if there's great art. I bought many
Right.
crappy comics on art, and I've dropped many comics because they changed the artist, and I thought it was crap.
Who's your favorite comic artist?
Oh, Mike Zeck. I'm glad you asked that. So Mike Zeck, he classic artist in the 1980s. He's the one that was the artist for the original Secret Wars, which introduced the black symbiote costume, which became Venom. He also did a bunch of Captain America. So I met him at Comic-Con wearing this vest, I want to say 5 years ago. Nicest guy. He loved it. And I'll show you two things. So first, he had these prints. He signed this print for me.
Oh, nice.
Then he signed my original comic I had bought for me. And then the greatest thing is, I drew this in 8th grade, and he signed that for me.
Bring it over to the center a little more. Okay.
So that's his signature. I drew this in 8th grade because I loved his art.
So
And
were you aspiring to be a comic artist at one point in your life?
Yeah, I wanted to be really bad. If you look, you told me to get ready. So this is my high school chemistry notebook. Like, I would doodle stuff in there all the time. Like, I aspired to be a comic book artist, but then I realized.
So what derailed it? Yeah.
Well, so I worked at a hospital, got my degree in biology, minor in chemistry philosophy, or chemistry philosophy, collateral and physics. Had to get that right. I'm stumbling. Worked at a hospital on the administrative side for like a year and a half, 2 years, and I just hated it. Like, just wasn't me. Like, for better or worse, like this office. And I was always good at drawing, always want to be a comic book artist, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to say, screw it. And I went and applied to Savannah College of Art and Design in 1998. And that's when they first had and it was at that point where they had the classic illustration design, and they just started computer art, 3D art.
Right.
And so I thought about it, and I'm like, where's this going? So I went to 3D art scale instead. So
I see.
Yeah, that's what got me into this business.
I see. Yeah, Savannah's a really good school now. I'm sure it was back then. It's, pretty prestigious now.
I had fun there. We were the guinea pigs. The first 2 years. It was a little flyby. Like, my curriculum, the 3 years I was there, because I had to get some undergrad credits because they didn't I was a biology major, not an art major. My 3 years there, every semester the curriculum would change. At one point, it was just like, just pick the classes you want to pick and we'll roll with it. And it was like, okay. So I actually learned the most from the students there and the teachers that were like, I was there when Maya just came out. And I remember my professor going like, we're going to learn Maya, it just came out. So we all, like, the class itself learned Maya together. Like everybody kind of figured it out. So to me, that was a cool thing. That was actually a cool experience because, it was a very community vibe. Everybody was trying to show everybody how to work all this new software, like Softimage. I learned Softimage.
Right.
A lot of people have not heard of that. They're like, what is that?
Yeah, Softimage was a great program.
Yeah,
But not to get into too much into the weeds into programs. So all those boxes behind you, those are all filled with comics, right? So
Yeah.
what's kind of your overall philosophy of collecting as far as how do you decide what comics you're going to buy to put in those boxes?
It's a story. What story I like. Like I said, that top Cosmic Awareness box, which is it started off as one small one.
Mhm.
And basically it just went down this rabbit hole to where in the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries, Thanos comes across all these people and even like gods and like the elders of the universe and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, if someone were reading this, they wouldn't know who these characters were. So then I started going down like, where was the first appearance of this character? How's it tie into the story? Like
Right.
blah blah blah. And it just went down a route and started. But I'm glad I did it earlier because now, because of the movies, I couldn't afford them now. Like this, we're talking 15 years ago when I did this.
Right, right.
So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I imagine those have turned into a good investment, huh?
I would never sell them. That's the thing.
Right.
That's my treasure. I'm a dragon. I sleep on them at night.
Yeah.
I
You
told
got
my friends. I told my friends when I die, I want a Viking funeral.
and you burn all of them on
All
top of
my
you.
all my comics underneath me, and I told them, I was like, if you want any of them, you got to fight for them on the burning boat. So go
Yeah.
for it.
You got to start a trust or something and put them all in a trust so no one can ever sell them.
Yeah,
And they all just hang on the wall somewhere.
yeah. It's like I read them. Like one of the biggest finds I got is because it's Cosmic Awareness scrolls. I'm like, well, you got to know the first appearance of the scrolls. So I hunted down Fantastic Four #2. At the time, I saved up for Comic Con. I think it was 2010 Comic Con. Saved up $400, bought it. It's kind of a beater, could read it. But I read, like, I'm not there to put them in a sealed box. I want to read them. Like, I like the smell of the newsprint. So I sent a picture to my buddy Jim, and he, just to give him crap, is I was reading it in the tub. And I was like, yeah, I'm just reading this in the tub. And he's like, I hate you. And I'm like, why? It's like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's not about making money on it. It's just, I just love the stories. And the more the more you dive into it, the more you realize, oh, there's a cool story here. And going back to earlier, one of the things I think this generation and the people making the movies don't get, and I understand that. The first job I ever had was previs Fantastic, the first Fantastic Four with Jessica Alba,
Right.
and the director would be like, "Oh, Johnny Flame." I'm like, "It's a Human Torch," and basically the whole research is they went and bought a couple trade paperbacks of Fantastic Four, and they're like, "Okay, we know what this is. We're gonna make a movie."
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like that's why, like, there's stories there. And so you go back and look at these old like 60s 70s comic books that, yeah, the writing's kind of cheesy, the art's kind of out there, but you can't focus on it. You focus on the story. What are they telling? Like, it's like the Star Wars prequels. It's not the story. The story itself is great. The storytelling is horrible. So,
Right.
yeah, and that's my philosophy. It's like, you got to look at this for the story. Like, don't look at it. I've always said those who look on the past through lenses of the present and judge with contempt do so at their own ignorance, because you too will be judged. So
Right.
don't look on this medium from 68. Yeah, it was a different time, and be like, oh, this is cheesy and dumb. It's like, no, look at what they're saying. Like, look at the creativity, look at the story points.
Yeah, and I think that only that sort of perspective only comes with age, though. You
Yeah,
can't. There's something
yeah,
about your brain and the way you perceive the world around you, where you're not able to do that until you've done enough and seen enough to be able to, put
yeah,
yourself in someone else's shoes, and do it in a meaningful way, where you can do exactly what you're saying, look at it and see it for what it actually was.
yeah.
Uh,
I think another problem is, and you bring up a really good point. I'm glad you said that. Is today things have gotten so compartmentalized to where, so like Walt Simonson. Anybody out there that doesn't know who Walt Simonson is, look up his Thor run. One of the greatest Thor run, like is iconic. But he was a paleontologist. He wasn't an artist. And when you look at his signature on his name, it's a sign of a it looks like a brontosaurus.
mm,
But he just happened to have an affinity for art, and so he wanted to do comics. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby didn't have a background in writing or sequential art. A lot of these old artists and writers didn't go to school for it. So they had life experience. It's like people that, yeah, I'm not the greatest artist, but I've lived life, I have different experience, I've lived out here, and I'm going to write these cool stories. And I think one thing that is really hurting storytelling in comics and movies today is there are people out there that, yeah, no offense to anybody. I was young and stupid and thought I knew everything, but they haven't experienced anything. They know how to write, they know the structure of writing. They know, like, oh, this is how you, like, these are the structure of a story, these are story points, but they haven't done anything else but learn that. Does that make sense?
it does, and it's anybody can slot in, and that's exactly what we were talking about before. How plot driven is just exactly that of what you're saying. Is you slot things into the hero's journey. I forget the book that every screenwriter uses. The cat. Something about the cat. It's a structure that almost all movies are written within, and you can insert plot into that and have a lot of explosions and have a bunch of good-looking people that are running through these explosions on your way to each bullet point.
Yeah.
But that isn't a satisfying storytelling.
It's a
uh,
video game. It's a
it,
video game.
yeah, well,
It's a
and
video game. It's
because it's interesting to me, and why I asked you the questions I asked you at the beginning is because our generation, I feel like, is the first generation ever in the history of the world that media has imprinted on, where there are these moments that I consider them to be psychedelic experiences almost, when your
yeah.
mind is blown as a kid for the first time with Star Wars, with like
Well,
with
just
anything that you're
game,
taking in at
game,
that young age.
game technology. Like,
Right.
there's part of me, like, I feel I'm kind of blessed because you can call it narcissistic or whatever, but I can't. I was raised in this sweet spot to where I wasn't old enough to understand politics like Carter and all that and Reagan, but I was introduced to, like, Star Wars, Close Encounters of the First Kind, Jaws, Empire Strikes Back, Buckaroo, like all these quote unquote classic. It was a sweet spot of everything from comics to iconic TV to iconic movies. And then you had the Atari, the Nintendo. I had the Sony, the original Sega, which
Yep.
was awesome. Then the PlayStation. You grew up, we started with, I had friends with a Commodore 64. I had an Apple
Yep.
II
I had
NS.
one. Yep.
And we grew up in this 20-year leap in technology and filming advancement, and we've seen it. And I think I was kind of blessed in that sense because it's
Yeah,
like,
we lived right through the turn. That was
I
the
almost,
blast off.
because not to sound like an old man, it's like, no, like, I see the good and bad in this. Like, I see, like, this is amazing. You guys don't understand how far we've advanced in just literally 20 years, like literally
Right.
20, 25 years.
Yep.
So yeah, I've seen it, because I don't see technology really advancing, making another big leap like that for another generation. Really don't.
Oh,
It
the
reminds me of,
next thing that's going to change everything really soon is AI, but that's
that's
a
still way again next generation. we're gonna be old men, and then we're like AI is out.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be something that we can't wrap our head around.
Yeah,
The
I'm
young kids will be like,
my dad. Like, how do you wait? What do you do?
Grandpa, you just got to code a little Python into the prompt, and you're like,
Grandpa, you don't know how to operate the hollow phone? Come on, just
yeah.
do it.
Mind melding's not that bad.
Yeah,
You just link
come
up with
on.
the other person and download their brain into yours, and you're just like, oh, old and crotchety. Like, I would never want to look into somebody else's mind, and I sure as hell don't want them looking into mine.
Or it's like I'm pressing the red button and nothing's happening. I'm pressing the red button. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
press the green button, Dad.
Yeah.
Press the green button.
So what then are your top five? Like you talked about, you're collecting based on which stories you like most. So what are your top 5 comic stories of all time?
The
That's
Thanos.
cool,
Yeah, the Thanos quest. Like I said, I'm going to cheat and use the same title but 2 stories. X-Men Dark Phoenix Saga and X-Men the Josh Whedon when he first came back, those first 20 issues.
It's cool, man.
Holy crap. Like, I was so sick of comics. Like, I was like, I don't like this. And then Josh Whedon, like, especially X-Men.
Yep.
Like, X-Men were great. And then, like I said, like Jim Lee, Don't Wait to Rent. As much as he did good for X-Men, he ruined X-Men because he made the X-Men sexy. He made the X-Men the cool kids.
Right.
And for better or worse, sales went up, but that's what happened. But Josh Whedon just came back and just nailed that thing. Say Spider-Man, the Hobgoblin Saga. It's basically first Spider-Man. Here we go. Where is it? Son of a hose, go. Killing me. Was this?
This is Spider-Man 1?
No, this is my first Spider-Man comic. 250. No, actually 261. This is it. 250. All right. Yeah. Wait, no, it's 250. Where's my 252? See, you put me on the spot and everything. Anyway, it was Amazing Spider-Man 252. The first appearance of him in his black symbiote costume. But when I started collecting, I loved the Hobgoblin. He just showed up on the scene, and there's this great arc with dealing with the black symbiote costume. He's figured out it's a symbiote. He's got to get off of him. He's dealing with Mary Jane discovers he's Spider-Man, like he's Peter Parker Spider-Man. He's got Puma and Hobgoblin on his tail. Like, it's a great arc. And then, it's him basically coming back to the original red and blue costume. That's probably 3. 4 is Thor, the Walt Simonson run. And then 5, probably going to have to say the Conan series that just came out, books 1 through 6. Those things are awesome.
The new series that you're into.
Yeah, it's this guy. It's been out for a while. Hold on.
So and who's the artist behind it?
This is the first book of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but the art makes it, and it's just great story.
Is it like Frazetta style?
Kind of, sort of. Like he looks cool. They changed artists like book. I don't know what issue, but because I got the books, book like 6 or 7, and for some reason it just wasn't appealing because this artist was just, I don't know what it was about him. Like they were a great combo. Yeah, it's probably off the top of my head. Those are probably the top ones.
Yeah. When we talk about great comic book artists, Fabrock comes to mind.
Yeah.
And also
John Byrne.
Alex Ross always stands out to me.
Love Alex Ross. Alex Ross, I remember seeing him in, like, he sees it. Like,
yeah.
I always hated when people were like, superheroes are guys in spandex. I'm like, no, it's a template. Like, when you see that outfit, that's just a template for a uniform. However, again, old school comics, you can't look at them literally. You look at it like this is just a template. You look at them like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Like, if you look at Egyptian, you're like, oh, Birdman pokes, Hawkman. That's so stupid. It's like, no, you're missing the story. Like,
yeah, to me, he's almost like the Cliff Notes of all comics. Like, if you're going to show it to one person and they were like, sum all comics up to me in one story, I would probably give him like Uncle Sam.
I would give him Marvels. Have you read Marvels? I give him
Yeah.
Marvels and what is it? The Justice League, what he did. I think it's called Justice.
Yeah, I
It's
love
a
all that water painting or watercolor style. It's
well, he
all
gets
so good.
like, he shows people in their traditional costumes,
Mm,
but it looks like you buy it, like it's realistic. Like it's like,
yeah,
oh, you get that.
yeah, and it's high art too. It's
Oh, dude,
like
it's beautiful.
it's a demonstration of skill across the board, writing wise, art
That's my.
wise.
Let me show. Hold on. Yeah, this is the. It's my Alex Ross Spider-Man print.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I love that. Like, that's one of my favorite
Yeah,
prints. Yeah,
and then
John Byrne. John Byrne can draw anybody.
mm,
I don't know
I,
if that's where
I
you're
liked a lot of the more newer school artists around that McFarland era too. That kind of hopped onto the scene when Dark Horse kind of got really big, and then there was a lot of. I don't want to say multiverse, but kinda. There's an artist I remember that sticks out to me, Ashley Wood, who did a bunch of medieval Batman stories,
I know
where
of. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and
yeah,
they were really cool. It almost looks like paintings out of like coffee and blood,
yeah,
almost, where it
yeah.
was really abstract and stylized. And I got a lot really into that stuff for a while.
Dude,
Uh,
there's a mini series called Wolverine Havoc, and I can't remember the name, the artist, but it's really abstract, but it's really raw. It just looks
mm,
like it's like paint slapped on a canvas.
yeah, I love all
And
that kind of stuff.
yeah, if the artist will grab me, like if you're a good artist, then I'll check the book out in a heartbeat. You
Yep.
know, I'm gonna make a lot of people mad. I was never a big fan of manga. I was never a big fan of manga
It's
because
a more
I
pure
get it.
storytelling, I would say. It's
Well, the thing
almost
is, like, I get it as an artistic platform. It's like jazz.
mm,
I don't like jazz, but
right.
I get it. They're talented people. My whole thing is like I used to draw all the time. I'm not going to pull up any of my sketches or anything, but I used to draw. And my whole thing was like Alex Ross is I wanted to see realism, and
Right.
manga is these over exaggerated, like when I forgot who it was, Joe Mad
Go
did
Mad, yeah.
yeah, he did X-Men,
Battle
like
Chasers.
yeah, Juggernaut was like this, and everybody's
Yeah.
like this. And it's like
Yeah.
I get what you're doing, but I'm
Right.
just not. It's just it's pulling me out of the world. That's all it is.
Some other, and I'm going to space on a lot of these names, and I'm so sorry for the comic people listening, but the art of Tank Girl, I really liked the whole Tank Girl run. I liked how punk rock those guys were, and
Wish
you
you could
know,
have known. I could have gotten you Lori Petty's autograph, man.
yeah, they were doing like a bunch of dope while they were writing it, and just burning through all the money that they got paid for advances, and it was just really like a renegade punk rock run. And the art's so cool and expressive, and it
Oh,
was kind of a style I hadn't seen up until then, you know.
I'm trying to
Uh,
find something real fast. Hold on.
and what's the artist's name of Tank Girl? Do you know off the top of your head?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's what
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I feel
I'm trying
bad.
to
I
find
can't shout him out. Uh, and then I really enjoyed Transmetropolitan as one of my favorites.
yeah,
That
that was
sticks out to
actually really
me.
good.
Yeah, I love Spider.
If you look at what was it, top 10? I don't know who the artist that drew that. That's good. Oh, what's his face? Kirkman, who drew Invincible and Walking Dead. I actually really enjoy
Oh
his.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kirkman's. I'm trying to find something to show you one of my favorite. Oh, there it is. Oh, beautiful. Um, if any comic people are out there and you don't know about this, the artwork looks just like this. It was an Alien series from the 80s, and that's what the artwork looks like. Like it is
Oh,
just
dope.
oh, it is like everything is beautiful. Like that's issue 2. All the art, like that's the inside artwork looks like that.
Yeah,
So
and we discussed last time a bit about how Geiger basically defined the art of the entire sci-fi genre for the
yeah,
last
he
30
definitely
years.
influenced it. He definitely influenced it. Like yeah,
Yeah, where everything you see now is some sort of Geiger homage to Geiger in some kind of way. Like
I would
even
say I would say
Halo, the video game.
I would say that and Ralph McQuarrie.
Right, Ralph. Yep. Yeah,
I
definitely
I
Ralph.
can't think of his name, but I have the book right here. It's one of my favorite art books on.
Um,
Keep talking. Sorry.
I'm trying to think of who else really sticks out to me comic wise. That I mean, McFarlane did stick out too. McFarlane has a lot of hate around him just because I guess he monetized himself so well, right? Like
This guy, John Barkley, is amazing.
yep. I like all that kind of stuff. And then,
Well, the thing with McFarlane is he had a good style, but
mm,
I'm not.
I
It's a
like how
weird thing where it
Dark
kind of
Spawn was.
Hey, what?
I like how Dark Spawn was. To me, that was there wasn't anything as dark as that where it's a demon hunting down a congressman's pedophile child. It was just all the stories of it. There was this it was really like dark and sad, and there
Yeah.
wasn't anything else to me that stuck out like that. Like, oh, this is something kind of different.
Well, one of the great things about Spawn, it started off, and McFarlane was like, like you said, it's like I'm making too much money. I change it. Is he
Right.
wasn't supposed to live forever? Because you remember in the back of every issue, he had a power meter, and when
Yeah.
it dropped to zero, he was supposed to die. And at
Right.
some point, it's after I quit collecting, I'm like, oh, Spawn's still around. They're like, yeah, they kind of they kind of got rid of that. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
because to me, that was one of the most interesting things about Spawn. It's like, oh. Marvel Comics used to be known for that. So when DC came out, got so ridiculous. Marvel is where DC was at in the 60s and 70s, where there's so many different versions, there's so much content. You don't know what the fuck's going on. It's just whatever. Super Dog, stuff like that. And so
Let me
Marvel,
cut you off real quick. Marvel versus DC movies. What side are you on?
here's the thing, Marvel makes better movies. DC makes way better animated movies. DC's animated, going back to the original Justice League cartoon, like in the 2000s,
Mm,
DC's animated content is it's amazing. I
right.
think it's Final Frontier. I want to say the name of it. It takes place in like '68 with Kennedy, and it's a old school origin of the Justice League. That's a great movie. Like it, I don't care. I want to say it's Final Frontier, something Frontier, Last Frontier, Final Frontier. It's amazing. Like yeah, DC makes. I wish DC could make movies like they make their animated shows, and they'd be killing it. They'd be killing
What
it.
did you think about the last Batman?
I wasn't a big fan. The Batman
Really?
Superman. Oh, the one.
No,
It
not
was
Batman Superman. The latest one with
the
Robert
Riddler.
Patterson.
The Riddler.
Yeah,
I mean, it was all right, but I felt like someone really liked the movie Seven,
yeah.
and
We were
and
joking that it's sad, man. He's
yeah,
just so sad.
and he was a good Batman, just a
Mm,
really bad Bruce Wayne. Like he was just so emo.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
what
like
we were joking about. Yeah, he's just so goth and
it's because like Christian Bale was a great Bruce Wayne. He just was a cheesy Batman. It's like
yes, exactly.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and on that note, I have
That's
to ask
why
you this one. I feel like those movies don't hold up, minus the scenes with Heath Ledger. I
I
feel like
agree.
Heath Ledger killed
Great.
that Joker role so much,
Yeah,
and then they rode the coattails of that Ledger performance
yeah.
for the rest of the movies, basically.
Well, the thing is, I want to make a quick caveat here because we're talking about people. Spider-Man is my favorite character. Was it Tom Holland? Is that the kid that's playing?
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say I almost cried in Civil War when he showed up as Spider-Man because I was like, someone finally gets this character. Like
Yeah,
he's a great Peter Parker and
he
he's a
is.
great Spider-Man.
Yep.
Because the Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker. He's a shitty Spider-Man.
Right.
Andrew Garfield was a shitty Peter Parker, but he's a great Spider-Man. As opposite. And Tom Holland Tom
Yeah,
Holland.
he's
Thank
also
you, thank you.
he's
The 12-year-old in me almost shed a tear because of
yeah.
Tom Holland's performance in
Yeah, and
Civil War.
Holland's cool too because he's athletic too.
Yeah.
He can do all those
It's
jumps
just
and
not that
flips and
he gets the personality. The whole thing about
yep.
Spider-Man is, and I hate, it's a thing that the Marvel movies have been doing consistently. So Spider-Man is not supposed to fight the Hulk. Spider-Man's supposed to fight like Green Goblin. Like I'm gonna nerd out. Official handbook of the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man can lift press 10 tons. As opposed to Thor, who can do 100 tons. Spider-Man's not supposed to fight these big. That's the Avengers' job. Spider-Man fights.
Uses agility.
And in the movies, like the thing that really pissed me off the movies is he gets hit way too much. His whole thing is and it's done in the comics. If Spider-Man gets punched and knocked through a brick wall, he's hurt. He might have broken ribs. His whole thing is he's like Floyd Mayweather Jr. to where he's so fast you can't hit him. He talks shit the whole time to get you more frustrated, so you start swinging blinder and blinder, and he takes advantage of you and just pummels you down. But if you catch him or if you hit him, it's gonna hurt. That's so. Anyway, going back to what was the Batman is the first movie. What was it? Batman Returns. Was that the first one?
Michael Keaton?
No.
Nolan's.
Yeah, Nolan.
Oh, geez. The first one is Batman Begins?
Yeah, see, the problem with that is, and the new Batman movie tried to touch on it, is, again, stick to the mythology. There's canon there. And so there's a book, Batman Year One. Go get it. Go get the trade. And it's Bruce Wayne coming back from training, and he's not taking on supervillains. He's taking on just crime people. And the first time out, he kind of gets his ass beat and learns a few lessons. And as he gets better and he gets his own, at the very end of the series, they're like, hey, man, there's some dude showing up in a fucking scarecrow outfit. So that, and it spawns all these other villains, which they kind of touch on in the movies. But the first Batman that Christopher Nolan, Batman Begins, they miss that whole, it would have been the perfect thing to build up to the Joker. But instead, it was just hodgepodge of Ra's al Ghul and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, show Ra's al Ghul, drop him off, never mention him again.
Yeah. And then back to Spider-Man a little bit. I want what's your take on Miles Morales?
Spider-Man into the what was the animated Into the Multiverse, or was it? Yeah. In the theater, I went and saw that, and there's 3 times that there's 3 moments where it made me why I like Spider-Man. One is the first time I picked up a Spider-Man comic book, and it just happened to be the right issue, and I learned it. The second was I just drew a blank. It'll come back to me. But
second moment in Spider-Man love.
Yeah, no. The second was when the Hobgoblin story. I was like, oh yeah, you're doing it. And the second was the Ultimate Spider-Man series. So it made me feel like a kid. The first 20 issues made me feel like a kid reading Spider-Man for the first time. It's like, this is what it felt like to read Spider-Man. The Miles Morales cartoon, same way. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. That being said, I get what they're doing, but it's what DC did, and it goes back to another thing. It's like every character is unique. So the Hulk, Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner was a fluke accident. Anybody who had been caught under that gamma radiation would have died. He just happened to be that. But now if you look in comics, there's Red Hulk, there's this Hulk, there's everybody's a Hulk.
She-Hulk.
And same thing with Wolverine. Well, he's got a daughter. He's got this guy. He's got a son. And it's like you're taking away the uniqueness and originality of these characters by trying to say, we need to have a different character for everybody. It's like, no, I like the character for that. One of my favorite characters in X-Men is Kitty Pryde. It's a 13-year-old Jewish girl who lived in New York. I have nothing in common with that, but I fucking love Kitty Pryde. It's like, you should like the character. And while Miles Morales, I like the fact, again, that movie, and I like the character. It's okay. It is what it is. But Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Same thing. Again, Clark Kent is Superman. Bruce Wayne is Batman. That's it.
Yeah, and again, I love the idea of Miles Morales too. He's Puerto Rican in New York. It's so New York and so perfect for the universe.
And they
totally vibe with what you're saying as far as it's lazy to not create a whole new character for him.
Yeah, But because the thing is, again, that I didn't collect the comic, but I went and saw the movie, and I remember it was Christmas time, like 3 years ago, whenever it came out, and my girlfriend was like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm like, I'm. This is amazing. Like, I feel like a kid
Yeah.
reading stuff, and that's why I appreciate about it. It's like I appreciate that about. It's like I get that. I just wish that current writers with Spider-Man could understand that and convey that in current Spider-Man stories. Does that make sense?
There almost needs to be a job that's a nerd consultant.
Oh, I
That
would love that.
that just goes and you pay them a couple $1,000 for a few days, and they just come in and drill you with the canon of things
Yeah,
and
I would
tell
love
you what's acceptable and what's not, and it's needed so much throughout. There's so many huge cool properties that have such amazing setups and amazing lore that are given to people who
They don't understand it. They don't know it.
don't understand the canon, they don't understand the story, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal to not understand
It is. Again,
the
it's
power
research.
of what you're being handed.
Again, if you're doing a movie, say on Alexander the Great, they have done movies on that, but they've been horrible. Like you
Can
need
you
to.
skip up real quick?
Oh, right here. There you go. Sorry.
Just tilt your camera so you can sit how you want, but
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah,
no, no worries.
if you're doing a movie on any historical piece, Alexander the Great, Benjamin Franklin, whatever, name it,
Yeah,
then do your research. Like don't do a Wikipedia search.
right.
Don't grab a handful of like Google articles. Like dive in, learn the lore, like learn it, and then you can. And the product you're going to put out is going to be so much better. Like there's a reason this stuff has been around, especially Marvel has been around since the 1960s. It's because people have wanted it. People have kept it alive. If it was a horrible thing, it wouldn't be
It
around.
would faded away, right?
Faded away, and no one would know about it. So it's like when you get hold of these properties, you have to understand that it's not just a sandbox. Be like, oh, I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do. It's like no.
How much longer does the run last in your mind? Because I kind of liken it to the old like westerns in Hollywoods, right?
The Marvel,
There was the reign of westerns in early Hollywood, and
I,
everybody had to do a western.
I think it's going to be around for a while. It might die off, but what I compare it to when I collected comics is we're in the 1990s phase of movies. So in the 80s, Marvel was got all the classic stories, but then Marvel started to go bankrupt,
Right.
and so they sold it to they have a board now, and that's when you started getting like, we're going to try to generate a market now to where we're going to have the gold plated number one, the silver plated number one. We're going to reboot all these number ones to try to generate a market. And they weren't worried about stories. They're trying to more worried about generating a market. And the 90s, I hate to say it, 90s kind of sucked for comics. Like, I apologize to people who grew up with that, but they weren't great. So I think the movies, they're starting to go through that now, and I hope they pull out because I love the genre. Like I love the genre.
What do you think is the best era for comics? Period. Like, what's the golden era of what year is the best year ever for comics?
Oh, 1984. Everybody knows that. 1984 there was so many pivotal things happened in 1984, like artist wise. X-Men is when X-Men became cool. Fantastic Four started to get these iconic things. Walt Simonson hit the ground. I'm sure there's another era, like if you look, I'm sure if you ask somebody younger than us, they'll probably say like the Brian Michael Bendis era, like 2002 or 2000, because he did change the game. Like they were getting stagnant, and he's like, I'm going to shake things up. I'm going to change things around. He did House of M, Secret Invasion, all that stuff. So I'm sure people would say that. But for me, it was the 80s. Like it was roughly 84 to say 86, 88.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever get into any of the kind of I don't even know what to call it. Like I'm thinking of like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. The Juan. What's his name? I'm so bad with. There's so many dope artists, and it's a tragedy. I can't remember all their names, but he also did Invader Zim.
Oh
He
yeah,
was the
yes, I
artist
do
that
know
did
Invader
Invader
Zim.
Zim.
Yeah.
John the Homicidal Maniac was a really cool novel. It was about this kid and his next door neighbor was a serial killer. And it was kind of comical, but a really cool style was that Zim kind of style.
Yeah.
And but the serial killer would have somebody rigged up to an electrocution device, and every time the toilet flushed or the doorbell rang, it would electrocute the guy. And the whole house was rigged up with people being tortured, and it was this little kid that was scared to death of this guy, but ended up having to interact with him all the time.
The only one I could compare to that was the original Preacher series. The original
Oh
Preacher.
yeah,
I don't know if you have you read that? Do you know that?
I haven't read the original. No.
The original Preacher. And sorry,
Did you watch the show?
the TV series wasn't good. Like
I thought it was really fun the first season, but then
it's just
season two it
just
dropped off like really
I
bad.
hate. I mean, it's one of those things. Like the series is, it swings away. It's basically, the premise: a preacher gets the voice of God.
Right.
Then he's trying to hunt down God to find out why he let the world go to shit. He's got a best friend who's like the preacher actually.
It's funny that you said that. I didn't get any of that from the show.
Exactly.
Like when I watched the show, I didn't know until you just said that's what the premise is supposed to be.
That's what the premise is he's a preacher who gave up his faith. He was getting drunk, and this thing escaped from heaven that it was it was a hybrid between an angel and a demon, and escaped from heaven and entered him, that literally gave him the voice of God. So if he told you, if he basically, there's one issue where he gets pissed off with somebody, he goes, go count every grain of sand on this beach. And in the issue, the dude's frizzled hair, and he's going like 1,000,000, 1,300, 100, and then the wind blows, and he starts crying. He goes, one.
Yeah.
Like you literally have to do what he's pissed off, and he wants to hunt down God to find out, why are you letting the world go to shit? Because he lost his faith. He was a preacher who lost his faith. Like the comic is, I mean, they go all out too. That like it gets graphic, but it's still so fucking good, man. It's so fucking good.
Yeah. And I like when people take I guess I'm a horror fan in general, kind of too, and so I like those dark takes on things like that, where it's the hero's journey, but starting from, I guess, a sadder place. It's not just because
you're broken. You're broken.
I like the broken heroes versus the kind of unwitting hero. Like Luke's kind of the unwitting hero. Like, I don't know what's going on, and he just stumbles into his hero.
My only argument with that is Jack Burton is a great unwitting hero, so don't say anything about that.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I totally agree. But yeah, it's like, well, that's because every character needs depth. Like Superman. Someone was talking about Superman stories and Superman movies, and they were saying like, well, he's this super powerful guy. What do you do? So they're like, he's not really the draw. The villain is the draw, because the villain has the most character about them.
Yeah, all
Superman is, because he's perfect guy. He's an obstacle to the villain. And I was like, you know what? That actually makes really good sense.
Well, Superman goes bad all the time. That's what it gets kind of glossed over. Superman's gone bad a lot of times.
Yeah, because they run out of ideas. It's like it's anything else. How many times is Magneto going to show up and do something bad? How many times is Galactus going to show up?
Yeah.
How many times is Thanos going to show up again? It's like, how many times is Doctor Doom going to show up? Yeah, like you just run. Did you run out of stories
as Superman?
What?
Did you like Cavill, Henry Cavill as Superman?
I love him. I love him. It's like he's fucking off. Like, if he had the innocence, charisma of Christopher Reeve, it'd be the perfect Superman ever. Because Cavill, he's an intimidating guy. Christopher Reeve had that kind of innocence, but he didn't. He was big, but Cavill's got the build for it. One of the best.
I think they just canceled him as Superman.
Why?
At this Comic-Con. I don't know. I think I think he wanted too much money.
I can see that.
Was the main thing of it. I think for him, if he was going to continue to be Superman, he wanted lead character, that Robert Downey Jr. money to keep doing it.
deserves it. He was good. One of the
Yeah.
best comic book movie moments, like not movie, but movie moments, is what is it, Superman Dawn of Justice or whatever, where Superman comes back to life and he's fighting the Justice League, and the Flash goes at him, and you cut to Superman holding, I think it's Wonder Woman or somebody, and his eyes cut over as it's slow motion. You see the Flash going like, "Oh shit, he sees me," and Superman swings and all. I was like, that was one of the greatest comic book moments in history. Like it really was. Like that was an amazing. You need more of that. Like you need to show more of that.
I totally know what you're saying. That's such a difficult thing to describe of why that is the epic comic book moment. It's because everything's there. The power, all the powers are in demonstration. Both their personalities are there.
Yeah.
And you get to see why Superman's so awesome and why Flash is so awesome in the same moment.
And you get to see like a comparison, like, oh, Superman is really fucking like.
Yeah, he is that powerful.
He is that powerful. Like, oh, that look on Flash's face where he realized, like, he's like, oh shit. And like, oh, dude, it's like, bravo, man, bravo. Like, that was great.
Yeah, it's a special kind of person. I think the problem is too is there's so many different properties and there's not enough like real nerds out there that have the opportunity to take control of these things, like the Whedons Whedon's a straight up nerd, and that's what we need and want from the directors that are going to take hold of these properties. And it's, I mean, there's not that many people that are capable artistically, technically, and have the knowledge of the canon to take over this many properties.
Well, Whedon saved the first Avengers movie. They brought him in to help.
Yeah.
And that's why I hate to say it, that when I saw the first Avengers movie, like, it's not perfect. They didn't have the rights. If they could have switched whatever that alien race was with Skrulls that invaded Earth, it'd have been perfect. Like, it'd been perfect. But they didn't have the rights because Fox owned the rights. So other than that, I'm like, Whedon saved that movie. Like, Oh, another great comic book moment we're talking about is in the Avengers movie where Thor's fighting the Hulk, and he stands there and holds his arm out, and you hear the hammer come, and he's waiting. Again, it's those moments. It really is those moments that make a scene. It's great.
So what else was on the verge of death and then got swooped in and saved? Like for me, Frank Miller coming in to save Batman sticks out in my head.
He saved Punisher.
Yeah, he saved the Punisher, saved Batman. And he was kind of the guy. I mean, that said, I wonder if that was what his kind of life path was. Is they started calling him, being like, "Save these cool properties."
Well, that's like anything. It's just a hot. I mean, it's an industry. So if you're the hot property, whether you're a writer, director, artist, musician, whatever, you're hot. People are going to like, "Hey, do this for us. Hey, do this for us."
Yeah,
and then
because Batman wasn't cool for a long time until Miller
he was
came in and made him dark again.
Yeah, Dark Knight is an iconic. I mean, that's an if you're a collector and like iconic books, Dark Knight Returns, you have to own that. That's one of the, there's a list. That's one that goes on the list.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I would say the last one I could think of was Joss Whedon with the X-Men, who kind of turned it around for a little bit.
Yeah, Whedon's that guy too. He can fix things. I mean, Favreau, they talk about Favreau saving Star Wars to a point.
He did until
Favreau was a great storyteller.
He did with Mandalorian.
For Star Wars, Mando's great.
Yeah.
It reminds me. It does kind of remind me of like a USA Network show, though, a little bit. It's almost like Kevin Sorbo Hercules kind of feels every now and then.
But it's awesome. It's about the story. The story's great, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mando's cool. It's procedural too. I enjoy a lot of procedural shows where, we're getting into the same situation every time. We know like X-Men, like Mando, where we're gonna show up, there's a problem. Oh, to fix the problem, you gotta go kill this thing. And then he kills the thing, and then, there's a meme about it where
but there's an overall arc to the end of the story. It goes back to my original point, is like what comics and like Doctor Who, like I used to love Doctor Who up until I forgot the old guy's name. It was probably like 5 years ago. Like halfway through there, it just kind of dropped off. But that's what it was. It was a story. Every episode was a story, but there was an overall arc. And that's
Yeah.
good writing. To me, that's good writing.
Yeah, and that's why I like those procedural too, is because you know what you're getting every time, and then you learn a tiny piece of the overall arc per episode. So you're gonna show up to the crime scene, go discover the clues and then solve the crime. But across that procedural arc, you're gonna learn a tiny bit to the big overall arc that's running behind the scenes.
Unless you pull a Game of Thrones to where it was like half the episodes are 45 minutes of filler with 15 minutes of pertinent information.
Well, he never finished it. RR never finished it because I was reading those books along with it, and once you got up toward the last books, you could tell he didn't know what he's doing.
I'm just
He
talking about every
was going
season.
with it.
Every
Yeah,
season. Like I love the show, don't get me wrong. But
yeah,
it was like there was 9 episodes every season, something like that.
yeah.
And 6 of them were 45 minutes of character filler and 15 minutes of coolness. And then 3 were like, this is cool. It's like, come on, guys. Like, you can wrap this up faster.
I think it worked though because of the high level acting, right?
Yeah.
Like they were all high enough level actors where you could literally just point a camera at Cersei and watch her fold laundry, and it's interesting.
And the production value was amazing. Like,
Yeah,
you had to
so
have-
high, all the actors are tens, and I guess that would be there was only the biggest problem was at times they overacted scenes because they're such good actors. It was a little bit acted at times where it was such high drama and then they went over the top a little too much.
yeah,
But that's, I mean,
that happened later on.
being super nitpicky too. Like, your excellent acting performance went to an 11 a couple times. Could you take it down a half a notch?
Yeah, please, a little bit.
Yeah, just ease back a skosh on that, but
Just scoosh.
just a little skosh.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna sign off here. I just realized it's 10:30.
Yeah, and such a good talk, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your comics and sharing some of your stories and insights. And
I hope I didn't ramble and bore too many people.
I had a great time talking to you, and everybody, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscription. Every little bit helps at this point because we're just getting started, and we're going to be going live every Sunday from here on out. So we're basically going to have clips and segments of the show up on all the different platforms, and that's it for this Sunday. And enjoy the rest of your week.
See you later, guys. Thank you.